Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. I'm going to get my suntan lotion out for the weekend.
I'll tell you what, we're ready for spring, aren't we?
I am ready for spring, yes.
Let's talk about the State of the Union. Were you at the State of the Union address on Wednesday night or on Tuesday
No, I
night?
did not. I did not attend in person.
Oh, why not?
Quite frankly, they put a bunch of restrictions on it. You know, you had to have the N95 mask, the PCR test. You can't sit on the floor. You can't bring any guests. And they were really trying to be super cautious, which is their right. And then they changed it at the last minute. So to me, it's the people's house, and we got to let the people in. So even if I wanted to go, by the time I could get the PCR test, it wasn't going to be able to work.
So that was a last
just
minute.
Be consistent in your message.
So they must have sprung that on you at the very last minute, the PCR test, huh?
They did the day before.
Okay. I know there were no masks. I didn't see.
They changed all the rules.
Yeah, I didn't see any masks, though. I don't think that was a requirement.
No, they changed all the rules actually before, which was, good. I was being a little sassy, and I said a southern wind must have blown in from the Senate, and all of a sudden we don't have to have masks. But that's actually a good thing, and I think it's a positive sign that we're beginning to move forward. I just want to continue to follow, like everyone says, the science and not the political science. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this because I think over the past two years, it's really been difficult I know the people in the district and the people in the state and really the people around the country. So hopefully we're on the downside of all the restrictions and all the mandates, and we're pulling out of this and moving forward in a positive direction. That's what I really want to see.
Well, and as we do that, a lot of small businesses are still struggling to bounce back. There is a federal restaurant revitalization fund. And now there's, I guess, plans afoot to possibly add to that. Do you favor continuing to aid those small businesses, and particularly restaurants that have been hard hit during the pandemic?
Yeah, I do. And I do from this perspective is they didn't take a hit because of their bad policies. They took a hit because of the restrictions that the government placed on them. So if the government is going to restrict their occupancy and what they can and can't do, I think they need to also take a little bit of ownership on getting them back up and back on their feet. There's two acts right now. One, you mentioned the Restaurant Revitalization Act, but then there's another bill that I'm a co-sponsor on, and it's called the Entree Act, which authorizes $60 billion from unspent. And I want to make sure that everyone understands this isn't additional monies, but these are $60 billion of unspent money from the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the American Rescue Plan to help these restaurants get back on their feet, because they were hit extremely hard with all of these restrictions and mandates during the pandemic. So hopefully this will help get some of these restaurant owners, especially in our local communities, back up on their feet.
Getting back to the State of the Union address, what were you hoping to hear from the president, and what is your, response to what we did here?
Well, again, I'm going to try and put as a positive spin as I can on it, because I really feel at the end of the day we have got to do something with this country. We are in a state of crisis on many areas. I wish I would have heard a little bit more about China. He didn't even mention China, which with every briefing I'm in, that's a huge threat to our security and our safety. I was surprised we didn't hear anything about that. But I'm going to try and take an optimistic view. I mean, he talked about securing the border. I mean, almost 2 million people have come across our southern border. I hope this time his actions match his words and he really secures the border. I hope he actually does hold to his commitment of funding the police. You know, I realize he's going to have to deal with his progressive caucus who wants to defund the police at every turn. But I think if you look at the crime rate in this country, it is time to fund the police. And I really hope, I realize hope isn't a strategy, but I really hope he means what he says about putting America first. I think with the supply chain crisis, with oil, with that crisis, with labor shortages, with inflation at a 40-year high, I mean, in just 1 year under his presidency, I hope he really is going to put America first now and begin to do what's best for the American people and not continue to pander to his ultra-progressive end of his party.
Inflation certainly is something that we are all becoming all too familiar with. What can be done at the federal level to try to reverse the inflation that continues to rise and try and get prices back down?
Well, what I think is more important is what shouldn't be done. So inflation is when you have too many dollars chasing too few goods. One concerning point that he talked about of his speech was he wants to put more money. Well, we can't. That will only raise inflation again. We have to get our spending under control. We have to get the supply chains open, which we have to start less government, deregulation. We have to have the supply chain and give the supply chain the ability to move and to flow. We can't restrict that. We have to open them up. So it's more about, in my opinion, deregulation and removing restrictions and not adding any more new spending to an already overinflated economy of which we have right now.
The president started his State of the Union address talking about Ukraine and rebuking Russia. That got bipartisan support. Obviously, we've been all watching what's going on there. What should the U.S. response be to Russia as it continues its invasion of Ukraine? What can we do here in the U.S.?
Well, I think it's real. I don't want to oversimplify it, but in any crisis, follow the money. We import oil. America used to be a net exporter of oil, and we used to be energy independent. And you saw that at the pump. You saw that at the prices at the grocery store. We are now energy dependent. And what's important to understand is we're not consuming more oil. We're consuming the same. We're just not producing it here in America. And I would ask this question. We're getting oil from Russia. So it takes two things for a war. You got to have people to fight, and you have to have money. If we could choke off his money supply, of which we could, we send Russia $75 million each and every day because we import Russian oil. If we would stop that, and that would cripple him, that would shut off his money supply to feed his troops, to buy weapons, and to support his military. We could do that tonight. Then what we could do on the flip side is we could open up our oil production as well, like we did in the past, where we were energy independent. And I would ask you, who do you think has better control and regulation on the oil production, Russia or the United States? I would argue we have much better controls. That would also help Europe, but we have to hit them where it hurts in their pocketbook, right. And that's how you end this war. That's how you show the world that we are in power. I realize the Green New Deal people are not going to be happy, but I would ask them this. What do you think the carbon emissions is right now with the bombing in Ukraine? You think there's any carbon emissions going on over there?
Certainly, that is one way to cut off the money. The other one is sanctions. There have been a number of sanctions. I know initially you said sanction didn't go far enough, and then they've gone a little further. Is there more that we can do to put some more hurt on them?
Yeah, the number one thing we need to do, which the president doesn't want to do, which I'm very confused if he doesn't want to put America first, hit them in their pocketbook. Shut the money supply off. Shut their oil off. It's really simple. I mean, we can talk about taking their yachts. Okay, if we're giving them $75 million a day, I think they might be able to buy another yacht. Kind of seems a little silly to me.
It's a lot of money, indeed. We're talking with Congresswoman Lisa McClain.